It takes an incredible amount of privilege to say that you don't need money to be happy. The people who say this are the ones who have enough money to live comfortably, and always have. When they say they don't need money to be happy, they really are referring to luxury items. Take away the amount of money they need to have food, shelter, and clean water and they won't be happy anymore.
There were studies on this, and back then I believe the number was around $75,000 per year, where money stops being a direct correlation to happiness. Probably closer to six figures now.
Money won't make you happy, but not having any will sure make you miserable.
That awkward moment when this is what my boss told me when I asked for a raise, meanwhile he makes well into the six figures and goes on endless vacations per year.
Money buys things and experiences that can make you happy, it's hard to deny that.
Being able to afford all you need is a huge lift from stress.
I've lived poor and I've lived rich, and having money is a giant help to mental well-being and stability, which lets you actually build a decent life for yourself. When you have to choose between working through an illness so you can eat more than rice and ramen for weeks and still make rent, it really fucking wears on you.
Money for sure has made me happier. When I made $6.80 an hour pushing shopping carts and loading freight from trucks, I was miserable. Now that I make a lot more, the sense of security and being able to swipe my card and not get declined is a good feeling. All bills are on autopay, that is happiness.
My dad always says that money brings the feeling of security. Money has never made me happy emo, but at times when I had lots of money I just felt more secure.
Since half the human race takes the term "you don't need money to be happy" at face value instead of understanding it's referring to vast wealth, let's retire that saying and come up with something new. I nominate "you don't need to be on the Forbes Top 400 to be happy."
Money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure would eliminate every reason I'm completely miserable. Lol.
I think this is actually a very misunderstood saying. You have people out there who are their own worst enemy. They can never be satisfied with anything no matter what it is. They never have good judgment. They believe they are victims to circumstance. When you have money, that won't change that perspective. How can you be happy if you believe you're being victimized all the time?
I felt super satisfied living at the dacha, where we grew our own food and woke up to the sounds of roosters and went to bed by sundown. Chopped our own wood and slept on top of the pechka, Russian oven, stove, in the winter. I was really happy, and am overwhelmed with feelings of pleasant nostalgia when I go back, compared to my programming job and apartment living now. I don't agree, and therefore I upvote.
I lived on the streets in Portland and panhandled and played guitar for money for food. Some of the happiest times of my life. Everything was simple. It sucked, sure, I mean you sat in the cold rain every day, but you found pure joy in the smallest forms of human compassion. One time some hippies rolled up and gave me and my friends all dry socks and played guitar with us, and we were happy and nothing else mattered.
Deadass. I'm homeless RN and some money would make me pretty fucking happy.
Lol, lol, lol. Let me tell you how good I am about not saying anything when I don't have anything nice to say. My mom retired at like 51. Was a stay-at-home mom her whole life, never worked a full-time job, divorced her husband after I got kicked out of the house at 18, is currently living off half of her husband's pension and the money from the divorce. When her mother dies she'll get another $300K-ish. It's not all about money, you know, is something she says to me all the time. I just don't even say anything. Lol.
Money can't buy happiness, but it can damn sure reduce misery.
Money is necessary but not sufficient for happiness.
I somewhat disagree. There was a time when I lived in my $300 truck. Never knew where my next meal was coming from or where I was going to get the gas to move. Started up at the time, but it was the most free and least stressed I've ever been. Ate a lot of fish that summer.
I'm in Toronto and I just want to be able to afford rent. Loudly crying face.
A girl deleted her "Am I an asshole?" thread. It has her upset that her lazy ex-BF was actually loaded because of his father's oil wells. She was upset that he had money and he didn't spoil her. She was shocked that he lived a modest lifestyle such as driving a beater truck and pirating movies to watch with her. His friends told her the truth and she was floored. Women in that thread were about to kill her as she hit the lotto and blew it. Not lotto as in he was rich, but that he was a nice guy who wasn't rich but at the same time well off and lived responsibly. My question for Appa is, which is he or her? The simple boy or the angry girl? All the boy wants is a sweetheart girl.
So what you're actually saying is having access to food, shelter and clean water is a prerequisite for being happy. That has always been, and likely always will be true. Money, however, is an artificial invention which arbitrarily happens to be the means by which one obtains these things in this particular moment in time. If from one day to another, one's own hair becomes the new legal tender, would that mean being hairy makes you happy? Or will it still be, as it always has been, the food, shelter and clean water it happens to afford? The real question isn't, do you need money to be happy? It's, should you need money to be happy?
I've always said I don't care about being rich, I just don't want to have to worry about money. If your contentment is based on things other than amassing possessions, you stand a much better chance of being happy.
Excessive money no, but financially set so that you're not stressing over bills and how you're gonna buy groceries yes. If you are a happy well-balanced person already, you will always find a way to have a good time with a little extra cash here and there. If you're a miserable self-hating or emotionally unstable person, $1 million ain't gonna change that overnight.
We don't need money to be happy, you're right. According to a theory of psychology, I need to meet my basic requirements for living such as food, shelter, and water. But guess what? I need some fucking money for that.
I just need like $5K to fix a decade worth of problems. It's a shame that that is the windfall that would set me up for comfortable living at 30 and combat most of my stress. Being poor is the most expensive way to live.
It seems what you're describing isn't happiness but rather lack of worries, anxiety, hunger, etc. Once one has all their basic needs taken care of in a financially stable manner, will additional money make one happier? Does the vacations, nicer cars, houses, yachts, etc., bring happiness? I'm not so sure it does, and I'm poor as fuck.
I agree, but I think that people saying that usually aren't talking about money for necessities but extra spendable money that someone rich might have.
Cracks me up when I hear this. My wife and I are pretty well off and it allows us to have tons of free time. We're pretty happy lol.
Having money that's able to fulfill all your basic needs is what can make you happy. Food, shelter, transportation, etc. An abundance of money making someone happy is circumstantial.
I was raised in a family with good money, never worried about rent or food, went to private school, overall spoiled, then our finances crashed, it sent me into depression, met good friends in uni, still poor, but they helped me out of depression, now I make good money, but I don't have many friends, and I'm back into a bad place mentally. I've been on both sides of the argument before, and truth is, there's no real answer. Money can make you happy but there's a limit to how happy it can make you.
Money doesn't make you happy. Not having money makes you sad. There is a diminishing marginal utility of money, it follows an S-shaped curve that has an asymptote starting around 75K. That being said, money buys time, and free time does make you happy.
My dad always said, money won't buy happiness, but it sure as hell will make it a lot easier.
It's part of the propaganda narrative. If the average person knew the kind of life that wealth brings, convenience, access to innovation, freedom, lower stress and anxiety, etc., they would be rioting in the streets. It serves society to have these pleasant illusions as it keeps people complacent and focused on optimizing their situation rather than chasing something bigger. The reality is probably something like, the only people who can lead a truly comfortable and meaningful life, remember work isn't meaningful, you're just told to think it is, are those who live at the very top, 5 million plus of net worth, because those are the only people who are truly free.
completely agree. I also resent celebrities who say, "You normal people don't understand that all these millions don't make you any happier." I'm like, bullshit, you just suck at being rich. Give all the money to me then if it doesn't work for you, or at least to a charity if you really mean that. I'm 99% certain that if I got $1 billion my life would improve in a lot of ways and I'd be happier for it. I get that it's not cool to brag about having money and it's good to downplay your riches, but I'm tired of people acting like money isn't incredibly important.
Money doesn't give you happiness, but it sure makes it easier to be happy when you can afford food and medication.
I disagree, but that's why it's on this upvoted.
Money is a gate to walk through, it can bring pretty much whatever you want if you invest it right. I get the "you don't need money" mentality, but it's a damn lot easier to be happy with money.
My favorite response to "money can't buy happiness" is, yeah, but it can make a lot of problems disappear.
Yes, and no, money can bring temporary happiness, but in reality it only brings comfort. You cannot buy happiness, but you can buy comfort. I'm not a person with money at all, but it's just the simple truth that you can't buy happiness.
I feel like a better phrase would be, "You don't need to be rich to be happy."